I picked up my desk lamp and put it back on my desk again. "That's a dance for 3 couples," I said. "Maybe we should start with something for 1 couple." I paged through the book. The Gallop, the Racket, the Esmeralda or 3-slide polka, the Minuet, the Lancers, the Quadrille. You realize, don't you, that nobody dances these things nowadays? We'd be better off learning the foxtrot or the twist, or just figuring out how to wiggle with dignity. Foxtrot? Pho! Elizabeth Bennet and Fitzwilliam Darcy never danced any such thing. That's a 20th century dance. Well, what makes you think they danced the Esmeralda? This book was published in 1888. That's a good 75 years after Pride and Prejudice. Okay, perhaps not the Esmeralda, said Ashley. But they're always talking about the Lancers. Let's learn that. Right, the Lancers, ever popular with the crisp crowd. Kids were trampling each other to get to the dance floor when they started to play it at last year's prom. Ash shot me her scornful look. Taking Mr. Dodsworth's volume in one hand, she began reading minuet instructions aloud while prancing up and down the room. For a 3rd time, I returned my lamp to its place on the desk. It was a bit dented, but the light bulb was intact. My mother put her head in the door. "I take it Ashley's here?" she said. "Hello, Ashley. Funny, I never hear you come in. Broken anything?" "Nothing important," I assured her. "Ah, Miss Gould, just whom I most wished to see. Do us the kindness to step over here, madame," cried Ashley, taking my mother by the elbow. "We are short a couple. Would you rather be a gentleman dancing with an imaginary lady, or a lady with an imaginary gentleman?" "The lady with the imaginary gentleman, I think. That's pretty much how things stand anyway, so it won't take much imagination," said Mom. "What are we dancing?" "The Minuet," answered Ashley, showing Mom the book. "Don't you think it'd be easier with music?" suggested my mother. She turned to me. "Run and get the Mozart string quartets from the dining room, honey. Oh, and grab some Strauss, too, in case we want to waltz. Ashley, want to give me a hand with the desk? If we push it under the eaves, you might stop running into it." My mother was right to take charge. She turned out to be an excellent dancer. Who would have guessed? Ducking from time to time when a turn took us too close to the slanting roof, we mastered the 3 essential movements: the walk, the slide, and the balancé. Then we practiced combining them into various figures of the quadrille. Another surprise. This turns out to be nothing but a slightly less dorky square dance. We made a stab at the minuet, which is a bit more complicated, and rounded off the lesson with a waltz. "There," said Ashley after my mother had left. "Now we will indeed be ready for the Forefield ball, where I, like Elizabeth Bennet, will find my heart's mate, my Mr. Darcy, and you, like Jane Bennet, will find your Mr. Bingley." I bristled inwardly. I could understand how Ashley might identify with Elizabeth Bennet, that lively-minded young lady, though she seems to me more like one of Elizabeth's flighty younger sisters. But I was a little offended at her equating me with dull, good Jane, who falls in love with the second-rate Mr. Bingley. Though well-meaning and well-off, Bingley doesn't have half the brains or 1/10 the inner strength, not to mention the income of proud, handsome Mr. Darcy, Elizabeth's suitor. It seemed doubly unfair that Ashley should intend to hog Mr. Darcy when I was the one who gave her the book in the first place. But I suppressed my annoyance and opened negotiations to crash the dance with Ash, in return for her promise to dress like a normal human being during school hours. Chapter 3. Ball gowns, footwear, barns, a masked man. Our next task was to find suitable clothing for the dance. Fortunately, help was close at hand. My mother's shop, where she sells dainty objects such as greeting cards, teacups, beeswax candles, and, most important, vintage clothes. Before my father left, Helen's Treasures occupied our front parlor and served as a hobby for my mother, offering its antique footstools and potpourri to weekend visitors with noses of steel. Now the shop's tentacles reach back through the entire ground floor. Even in the kitchen, I have to push aside boxes of scented soap whenever I need an onion. Despite the expansion, however, Helen's Treasures is not a financial success. A painter, art teacher, and waitress before she married my father, Mom has more artistic talent than business smarts. Helen's Treasures makes just barely enough for our expenses. That is, if you factor in alimony, too. Ashley and I spent the last 2 weekdays before school started helping out in the shop, sorting, taking inventory, and replacing the unsold summer merchandise with fall items. In return, Mom offered us our choice of the vintage clothing. Ashley rummaged through the dresses and pulled out a pair of matching fluffy pink things that some long-ago bride had inflicted on her bridesmaids. "Aren't these perfect?" she cried. I was incensed. "Are you missing your macaroons? Crashing the dance is bad enough. I draw the line at crashing in a clown suit." "Although perhaps a little more pink than is strictly desirable, these dresses are modest and seemly," countered Ash. "Do you have a better idea?" "How about a couple of blouses and our long black skirts from Chorus?" "Unthinkable! Insufficiently formal for a formal." As we argued, I remembered that we still had a trunk to unpack from one of Mom's estate liquidations. We opened it and hit pay dirt. Dresses from long ago in many hues and sizes.